Hi. So you've been piecing your blocks in the hoop of your embroidery machine. Isn't it fun and easy? I love it. But you've decided that maybe you don't want to keep stabilizer in these blocks when you're finishing your quilt. That's a legitimate thought or question, but you're not quite sure what's the best way to go about getting it out and what's the best stabilizer to use. Well, don't worry, because we have you covered today in this video, because that's exactly what we're going to talk about. My favorite technique for getting stabilizer out of my blocks when I piece in the hoop. We're going to talk about my favorite stabilizer and the process. We'll talk about it a little bit here in the studio, and then we're going to go over to the lab, aka my kitchen, and we're going to walk through the process with you so that you see just how easy it is, and I can give you all the tips and tricks that I have. Hi everybody, I'm Diana here at Sew in Common. I'm the owner and designer here, and I love bringing these videos to you, and I hope that they can really help you. This is our Quilt Lab stabilizer for piecing in the hoop video. So let's talk about stabilizer for a little bit. In past videos, I've shared with you that really there are three stabilizers that you can use when you piece in the hoop. You can use a good old cutaway poly mesh, works great, but typically we leave that in. It can be cut out with a good pair of embroidery scissors. I've done that before. It doesn't really take very much time, so you could do that. And I've also talked to you about using a lightweight muslin. There are some quilters that like to use only natural fibers and fabrics and things in their quilts. And so a lightweight muslin, as lightweight as you can get it, will work great. And I have some previous videos here at YouTube that will help you with that idea if you want to use muslins, because we did a whole bunch of little videos and little experiments on that for you, so you can check those out. And then there is Washaway. And when I mean Washaway, I mean this kind of Washaway, the same kind we use when we do freestanding lace in our embroidery machine to make lace projects. This I found is truly my favorite. And getting it out, although there is a process for getting it out, I think that in the end, it has made my quilts softer. I don't have to worry about any of that stiffness that sometimes you get when you use this and you take it out. I have recommended in the past using a water pen to trace around your seams and then just peeling it away. And that works, and it works great. My only concern with that was I was getting kind of some stiff seam lines. Now that would all wash out in the wash, and I'm cool with that. But I also didn't like the fact that when this type of stabilizer starts to dissolve, it gets a little sticky. And I got kind of tired of always having sticky fingers when I was working with my blocks. So this is still great. You can still use it. And this is what I use if I'm on the road. If I'm teaching a class, I'm taking a class, because yes, if you go to a class where you're going to learn how to make a quilt and it's made with designs that you can use on your embroidery machine, then you can make it with your embroidery machine. You don't have to use your sewing machine. So this is still a great idea. However, I did some experiments this summer. See my notebook? You could call it my lab book. I did some experiments to figure out just the best way. There is an older idea of using fabric softener in water. And I thought, will that really work? What's the scenario with that? How much? Because I tried some recipes that I saw doing some research, and they didn't really work as well as I would like them. When I take this stabilizer out, I want it out. I want it gone. I want to feel nothing but fabric. Let me show you a square. A couple of months ago here at Sew in Common, I believe it was our May block of the month, we did the log cabin and a couple of its variations. Those are still free to get over at our website. I'll tell you more about that at the end. But this whole block and this pattern is at our website as well, was done all in the hoop with Washaway stabilizer. But do you see how it's just fabric? It's got that beautiful fabric drape to it. There's no stiffness to it. Let's look at the back. There is absolutely no stabilizer in there at all. And I use these blocks to run this experiment that I did to come up with this technique and the exact recipe that I felt worked best. And so we're going to take this into the lab with us today, but we're going to take our July block of the month, the Snowballed Friendship block, with us. I've got a whole little stack of them here, and we're going to work with those today in the process when we do the demonstration and show you the experiment. But first, I will tell you that I ran a couple of tests, and I'm going to tell you about one that I thought didn't work great. What I had read was to use 1 ounce of fabric softener and 8 ounces of water in a mister bottle and spray it on the back of your block, and then take it off and press it. Well, there was a little bit of a problem with that. And that was that when you go to press it, this back was sticky. That peels off your stabilizer, but it doesn't get rid of it all. There's a lot of residue left over with that. And it made it sticky, and it made my blocks just crumple up literally into little balls. Now, by soaking them and getting all of that stabilizer out, I was able to save those blocks, press them eventually, and a couple of them are actually in this piece right here. So you can see with work, I was able to save them, but that's not something I wanted to do every single time. So that idea of 1 ounce softener, 8 ounces of water in a mister bottle, that gets the big red X for me, okay? Because it just didn't work the best. But then I tried playing around with different combinations of fabric softener and water and soaking and stuff. And I've come up with a recipe that I think works great. So what I'd like to do now is for us to go over to the lab, and we're going to walk through this step by step. And I'm going to show you what I think is the best way to remove your water soluble stabilizer from your pieced blocks. Let's go. Okay, everybody, here we are in the lab, aka my kitchen, and I'm set up here for this demonstration and to show you this process for removing Washaway stabilizer from your blocks that are pieced in the hoop. Let's talk about quilting though for a second, because this process does take a little bit of time, not a lot of time. But I don't want you to be worried about that, because I kind of want to dispel the idea that quilting should be something you do fast and quick, because really quilts take time to make. So what I do is I kind of set myself a little plan when I quilt. I figure out how many blocks or segments, so this would be a segment of a larger block like this one, which is actually a table topper. That's the one I was showing you in the intro, and this is the pattern that you can get over at the website, all done with the log cabin and the log cabin variations that were free block of the month in May, which you can still get. But each one of these little squares in here is a component of the overall. So when I sit down with my quilting pattern, I kind of make myself a little list. How many half square triangles do I need to make? How many in color combo 1 or color combo 2? I kind of map it out that way, and then I do my cutting and I sit down and I start to piece. And I decide right from the beginning, how much time do I have today? Do I have an hour today? Do I have a couple of hours today? That'll tell me kind of how much of that I can piece in a day. So let's say I'm going to piece 15 of these in a day for my first day. I do all of my piecing. Then I do all of my trimming so that I've got my final block size. And then I'm done for the day. The next day, I might do more piecing, Or I might decide that I want to get all of the stabilizer out of these blocks I've already made, because I can, maybe it's something I can start putting bigger blocks together right away. But I kind of plan it that way. So when it comes to taking your quilts from piecing to removing the stabilizer, you're going to need a couple of things. You're going to need one of these big, we used to call these Milmac when I was a kid. I think that was a brand name of this kind of plastic back in the early 60s. But you need a big one. This is kind of a medium-sized one, but I have my big one here and it's full of water, so I'm not going to lift it up. But you need one of these. I say get yourself 2 of them, because that will help with a little bit of efficiency. And you're going to need fabric softener. Now, I will tell you right from the beginning, the first time when I was experimenting with good old-fashioned Downy. And it's a great fabric softener. But when you're using it concentrated the way we're going to, I almost passed out from the overwhelming aroma from the fragrance. So what I tried and decided that I liked was the Downy. It's called Downy Free, Ultra Downy Free and Gentle. There's stuff in here that makes it all fancy, but the thing I liked about it is there's no fragrance. And so I'm able to use this. It doesn't give me a headache. I didn't feel like I was going to pass out. And it worked great. And what I did is I decided that I wasn't going to measure things out like ounces and stuff like that, because I thought, you know what? Sometimes we just want to get in there. We want to get the stuff going and done, and we don't want to have to be precise. In a real lab, yes, people would be very precise, but they kind of give you the one main tool you need, and that's the cap on the Downy bottle. You don't have to buy a bottle this big. This was the smallest size bottle at our grocery store, which is 77 ounces. So that's, you know, I'm going to be able to do a lot of quilts this way, which is fine by me. But if you want, I'm sure there are smaller bottles available. But this cap worked great. So what I did is I filled up 2 of my bowls, and you can kind of see, yep, they're full of water, warm water. Cold water will work, but it doesn't work as well. This process really works good with warm water, not hot, okay? So you've got to find that balance. I can stick my finger in here, and it's just like, oh, that's nice, warm. You might call it lukewarm, I guess. I just call it warm water. Don't know a temperature. Just as long as that, if you put your hand in there and you're like, ooh, that's hot, that's too hot. If you put it in there, ooh, that's cold, that's too cold. That kind of a thing, right? And there's something else you're going to need. You're going to need a towel. Don't use a terry cloth towel, a bath towel, or a terry cloth kitchen towel, or even a microfiber kitchen towel. They will leave lint pretty badly on your blocks, even your older ones. I found my older ones left lint as bad as my newer ones did. But if you have these old tea towels, so like this one says something about, don't worry, it's supposed to say be happy, but it says beach happy because it was a summertime beach towel one. So this is an old one. I fold it in half so that just the white side is showing, because this isn't going to bleed color anymore, but I like to be careful. So I just fold it in half like this, put it in front of my bowls, just as a drip, and then when I take things out, I set it on it, and I don't have pools of water everywhere, right? So those are the tools you need, and then you need your blocks. And I'm going to say you don't want to do this unless you've got at least 6 blocks, because you can put 6 5x5 blocks in one bowl at a time. Don't do more than that, because then you start getting that starch, because this is really made out of a starch. So it is, you know, it's fine for the drain, all of that. Our plumber said, yes, it's fine. It's no worse than throwing potato water when you boil potatoes down your drain. And I always run just a little water to be careful, but I've never had a problem in all the years I've been doing this. So I don't put more than 6 of them in at a time, because then you build up the starch in the water and then you're not really getting it out. It's just sitting in a pool of starch water. So 6 5x5. If you're doing smaller ones, you could adjust. If you were doing 2x2 blocks, I do 10 at a time probably in my bowl. So You've got your blocks, you've got your bowl. I've got 2 of them just because I like to do get 2 bowls going at a time. And you'll need a timer. And if you'll excuse me just one second, I'm going to grab mine. I forgot to grab it. I've got my timer here. Any old kitchen timer will do. Maybe you've got one on a fancy watch or something, or your phone, whatever you like. That's cool. And then you're going to fill your bowls with water, and you're going to put half a cap, not a cup, but half a cap of Downy in each bowl. So I'm just going to pour this in, and I'll just kind of, it's white, so I don't know you're going to really see it, but it's just up to about right there. Half a cup, or half a cap, and pour it in one. And I like to see it disperse in the water. It's kind of fun. It makes it all cloudy looking. And I'm going to do that in my second one. And because this is that free and gentle, yeah, no smell to it. So I'm not getting overpowered by fragrance. And then I'm going to set that aside. And then my bowls are going, and I give them a second because if you could see the insides of both of these, in fact, let me push this down. You can see how this one is completely cloudy already. We slide it over and slide this one in. You can see that this one is still kind of mixing. Now, you could take a spoon and mix them. I don't like to use my kitchen spoons with fabric softener because I think it kind of coats it a little bit and then your food starts tasting like fabric softener. So I let it do its own thing, okay? Alrighty, so that's done in this bowl. So now I'm gonna take my blocks and I'm just gonna dip them in there and let them float. They'll eventually sink. When they get saturated with the water, they'll sink to the bottom, or you can just push them down if you want. When you're first doing it, it's kind of fun to kind of watch it and all, and then you get tired of playing and you just start putting them in there. So there's 2, there's 3, 4, and I'm only going to put 4 in each because that way I have, oh, actually I have enough to do 5 in each. Okay. All right, so those are in there. And now I'm going to put these in my other bowl, and I just press them down in there, okay? Let's push this over a little bit. There you can see I'm just pushing them down in my water. And make sure that they're completely submerged, okay? And I will tell you, you'll end up with really soft hands too. If your hands have been dry recently, you'll end up with some soft hands. Okay, so I just got those in there. And I can see it's starting to come off. All right, now I'm going to rinse my hands. And dry them. Now, I'm going to set my timer for 30 minutes. I know that's a good amount of time, but it needs it. That 30 minutes fully dissolves. Most of it is dissolved right now, and they've only been in there maybe 40 seconds. But to get them fully dissolved and out of the fibers, out of the threads in your seams, I found that 30 minutes worked best. I tried 15, and my blocks were still a little stiff when I went to dry them. So 30 minutes worked best. So hang on, and we'll be back in 30 minutes. Okay, folks, it's not been quite 30 minutes yet, but I wanted to talk to you about something that you might see in the bowl. Let me just pop this down. Can you see these little pink globules in my water? Well, guess what that is? That is my glue from my glue stick. And yes, it's washing away as well. It won't stick when you go to rinse these out. It's all going to come out. But what I'm finding is I'm getting just little globules on top of the water because it's rinsing out as well. So for those of you that have been concerned about using your glue stick, that's going to wash out with this process as well. And it doesn't wash out this way when you use other processes, because I've never had it come out this well before. So if you use a blue glue stick, it'll look glue or blue or white or whatever the color is. But the glue in mine is pink, and that's what's coming out in my water. So I wanted to show you that because I don't want you going, what is that? What's the problem with that? What is it harmful? No, it's just your glue from your glue stick coming out and dissolving along with the stabilizer. Okay, we still got a few more minutes and we'll be right back. Okay, everybody, we're done with our 30 minutes and I pulled one out to test it, and that is how it looks. There is 0 in there. I can scrunch it up and it's still going to be fine. So what you do is then I take a bowl over to my sink. Let's just, there, put this over here. And then I just take them out and rinse them. And you can see I'm just scrunching them up. I'm not being careful with them. You shouldn't have to be. They're sewn nicely together. There's one. And I just lay them out on that towel. And all of the glue stick part is coming, just sliding right off. So you don't have to worry that that's going to reattach itself to your fabric. I give them a good little rinse. Just lay them out. And I rinse them in warm water as well. Now, I'm going to talk to you here in a second because I know someone is going to ask this question. Did I pre-shrink my fabric? Let me just get this last one out of this bowl. And then I just take and I rinse that bowl down the drain. I rinse it out. I rinse my bowl out with the warm water because you can kind of feel a little bit of the starch has attached itself to the bowl. Now, I'll be honest, I don't use these bowls for anything but this process just because I don't like to, if there's any film or anything. And there, I'm done with those. And I've got this other bowl over here, and I'll do that in a minute. But here are the ones that I've done. They look fine. I'm laying them out because now, let me just get a hand towel here. Now we're going to leave these sit to dry after we've wrung out the excess water for about 30 minutes to an hour. I know, 30 minutes to an hour, but remember, we're doing our quilt. We're not doing this for time. We're going to let them sit here because air drying for a little while makes it easier when you go to press these because they're still going to be damp when you press them, and that's fine. But if you start steaming them dry, then you're going to start making threads brittle, the threads that make up the fabric, the thread that you sewed with. That kind of heat will make these things brittle, and over time they won't last as long. So we don't want to do that. So I just got them sitting here. They're going to dry for about 30 minutes to an hour, and then we'll come back and we'll do the pressing, and I'll show you how soft and beautiful these turn out. But what I wanted to share with you in regards to did I pre-shrink my fabric? The answer is no. To be honest, I never pre-wash or pre-shrink my fabric. I used to back in the 70s when fabric wasn't made as well as it is now, but there's really no need to do it now with modern fabrics. However, if you're using some older fabrics and you don't know, what the provenance of those are, then sure, go ahead and do it. It won't hurt anything, but I haven't done this. And I tell you that to tell you this, is that there's no shrinkage with this process. I measured my blocks when I did the experiment before and after I dried them, and there was no shrinkage at all. And that's, I think I know technically, chemically why that is, and it has to do with using that fabric softener. But I'm not going to go into all of how the molecules don't break and who cares, right? But I think that is the process, and I need to check that with my husband, who is an actual biochemist. I'm a biolinguist by education, although I've had a lot of chemistry. He'll know that better, but I think that that's what's going on there. But these are just going to dry now, And since I didn't have any shrinkage, I don't have to worry about pre-washing. And these are all modern fabrics, so I know that they're, I wouldn't have done it anyway. But that's good. So now I'm resetting my timer, and I usually set it for the full 60 minutes. Let it start, but I check them because sometimes if I'm doing a whole bunch of them, I get a little anxious to get them to the drying stage. But I'm gonna leave. I just test them. If I don't feel like they're dry enough, I let them go the whole 60 minutes is fine, is plenty. And then we're going to finish dry them by pressing them. And we are going to press them with a medium wool setting, not hotter than that. I've talked about this several times in the past. Using a lot of heat on our cotton isn't good for cotton. And I know we like to get in there with that high cotton setting, and we like to really press it in there and get those things done. It's not great for the fabric over time. And since I do preservation of older quilts, I can tell you, please don't use those hot heats. A wool setting, a wool to silk, is all you're going to need. So we've got a little bit of time, and we'll see you back here in 60 minutes. Okay, everybody, here we are now, ready to do the final step before we start to sew our blocks together into whatever quilt we're going to make. This one right here, you can see, has already been pressed. I pressed it with my little presser. Hang on, put that back up there. Actually, I just want that on a medium heat. There we go. And I just press these. I always press on the back first to get my seams, and then press on the front. Now you can use whatever iron you want. This is one of those little presses that you can use for like heat transfer vinyl and stuff. It fits in this little area better, so that's why I'm using it to show it to you. But I also have like a little Aliso or something like that would work as well, or whatever iron you use. But you can see how beautifully they iron, and there's nothing left in this at all. And it is the perfect little block. And you still have your line here all the way around for when you go to sew things together. And you're not going to have to worry about having anything extra in your seam allowances, which is really one of the big reasons I like this technique, is instead of cutting out all of my stabilizer around the edges, I just wash it out with this. So let's look at some of these. This is one. All of these are partially dry from letting them sit, but they've not been pressed. So let's press one. Here we are on the back. You can see everything is out. And now I'm just going to do my pressing. And I just use this little press kind of like I would an iron. And I only have it on a medium heat. That would be a wool setting, a wool to silk setting. That is as hot as you need it to be. Once I do that side, then I just flip it over and I give it a little press from the front. And I try to press. I try not to scoot. I know that that is a common motion for us, but I try to press rather than scoot, because when you scoot, you can end up giving yourself wrinkles that way. So not yourself, your block, of course. So I've got that. Now I have another one done. And then I just keep going. Now this one, because I didn't lay it out real flat, is a little more wrinkly. So let's see how this one works. I'm going to do my pressing. I always, like I said, I like to press around where I have my seams. So on this particular block, it ends up being in the four corners. And then I do my pressing on my centerpiece. So if this were a half square triangle, I would press down the center where that diagonal line is on the half square triangle. And then I give it a little press here on the front. And you notice it's only taking seconds. And the other thing I liked about this is basically my quilt doing this. I don't have to go then and rewash my quilt top. Here's my next one. Let's do one more. So all of these that I sewed, I let them sit for an hour. I let them go ahead and sit for a full hour and get most of the moisture out of them. But like I said, only use a medium wool to a wool silk setting. Don't use anything hotter because you're going to end up scorching your fabric. You're going to end up, um, what the heat does, it actually sucks moisture out of your fabric. And cotton, believe it or not, is a fiber that is made from cotton, which is a plant, which has moisture in it. And so the more we suck the moisture out, that's why drying in dryers, um, although convenient, is technically not great for our clothing because that's one of the things that helps our or causes our clothes to start to fade sooner and wear out sooner because we're sucking out the moisture. That doesn't really happen when you air dry out on a line. That's why our grandmothers and maybe even our mothers liked using line drawing. And I will tell you, I lined dry growing up with my mom, and I just think it works better. In fact, I love hanging my quilts out to dry that way when I wash them. Has to be cleaned, but alrighty. So I'm going to turn my little press off and let that sit there. But now I have a whole stack of these ready to be sewn. And as you can see, there is absolutely nothing left in them. And look at how pliable they are even at my seams. So nothing sticky in there. I'm getting no stick. All of the glue that I used, gone, washed away when I did the soaking of these in the water and the fabric softener. So I am going to actually take this and set it over on the other side so we can lay these out. I always, when I do this here on my on this, I always lay it on sheet out to catch that moisture so it doesn't accidentally cause a problem. So in fact, we can just take that away now as well. Here we go. So now I have perfect squares. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now they're a little over 5, of course, because they have to be sewn, and that's our seam allowance. But within that seam allowance, from here to here, exactly 5 inches. And so I can put these together and start sewing them together at my machine. And for those of you that are new, when you sew them together, this block that goes all the way around your block is your seam allowance. So put your needle right on the edge and do one click to the inside, not 2, not 3, just 1, because what that does is take you right off of your thread and put you in the perfect spot for your 1/4 inch seam allowance. And you do that on your sides, and you'll have perfect blocks every single time. So I start putting these together. These are for a project that I'm going to have a pattern for us next week for this, but we'll just lay these out like this now and start to look at them. Let's pull this up a little. But you can see how beautifully they turn out. So all you're sewing with at this point is your fabric. No more stabilizer involved. Now this one hasn't been ironed yet, but we'll just put it there for giggles. In fact, let's put this on there. This is going to be very scrappy. And if you'll notice, normally in this block, you do a white center and your fabric on your corners. Well, I switched that to get my fabric in here and the white as my background. Isn't that going to be pretty? So you guys will love this when I show it to you next week. So I'm going to set my pile that are pressed there, and then I have my little pile left to press, and then I'll be ready to make more squares or to keep going on my project. So I'm going to take myself out. Actually, let me put myself back here, this camera back in. I'm going to take myself out, and we're going to change our cameras. Let's see if that, oh, look, it worked. Yay, good. So that is how you take your stabilizer out. That's my process, and it really works beautifully, folks. As you can see with our log cabin from May, That's what I did. Let me bring this back over so you can see it. There. All of this is done that way. And look at how it just moves, just like fabric should. So then when I go to quilt this and I add my backing and my batting, I don't have to worry about going over little areas that have stabilizer, having my stabilizer in there long term. It's just fabric, batting, and backing fabric, just like any other quilt. And I love that process. So all I've done, I use that stabilizer for is the piecing on my embroidery machine. But that's how I did this block and the bigger table topper that you're seeing there too. All of those were done that way. And so you can see that the table topper, the bigger star one, there we go. That one has already been quilted and it was super easy. It was like doing any other quilting. And of course I quilted it on my embroidery machine. So let me go over this process with you one more time. Soaking, okay? You've created your blocks, your segments that you're going to make into a larger block. You're going to take your large salad bowl, the largest one you've got, like those ones I used earlier in the filming, about 4.5 quarts. So a nice big one. You're going to put half a cap of that free and clear downy. Now, if you want them to have a fragrance, you can use whatever fabric softener you like. But typically, especially if you're going to give it as a gift, you might want to stay away from fabric softeners with fragrance. If there are other brands out there that don't have fragrance in them, I think they would be fine as well. The Downy one happened to be, I know Downy is a tried and true product for decades and decades, and it was the one I felt like I wanted to use in this test, a good name brand. But I don't think that there would be a problem using another fragrance-free one, to be honest. Fill it with warm water, not hot, not cold, nice and warm. Put no more than 6 5x5. So these are 5.5 by 5.5, right? But they would be considered 5-inch squares. No more than 6 of these in a bowl of water at one time of that size. If you do a smaller block, of course, you can add a couple of extras because remember, we're pulling out all of that starch from the stabilizer, and we don't want our blocks just sitting in that because the more you put in there, the more starch you're going to have. Then after 30 minutes, you're going to take them out and rinse them under running water. You can squeeze them. Here's one that hasn't been pressed. When you're doing it in there, you can squeeze them, squeeze the water out of them, and then lay them on a tea towel. Don't use anything that is like terry cloth or anything that is going to have fuzz in that because trust me, it will land in your fabric and it'll be a dickens to try and get it out of there. Lay them on there and let them just air dry for about an hour. You can test them at 30 minutes. If you're really like excited to start getting them pressed, you could press at 30 minutes. But I recommend the 60 only because they'll be a little drier and you won't have to add that heat to them as long. If you let them sit overnight until they're basically dry in the morning and then just press them once they're dry, that's good too. In fact, that might even be the best yet. Okay. And then once they're dry and you press them, you can go on to making more, or you can start putting your quilt top together. And the one nice thing is this is really nice and soft now. The fabric is really soft. There's no more sizing in it from the manufacturing process. There's no more glue stick in it because that comes out in that water as well. And there's no more stabilizer in here. And all you're working with now is fabric and thread, just like when we piece in any other quilting technique, okay? So that is the process for getting what I feel is the best way to get that Washaway stabilizer out. And when I say Washaway, I'm talking about this white Washaway, just like the kind we use with freestanding lace. You only need one layer of it when you piece. Don't think you need to or try to. That's just wasting your stabilizer. And then you'll have more of it to have to get out in the end. Okay. So that is our Quilt Lab stabilizer for piecing in the hoop video. I hope you find it helpful. I have really fallen in love with this technique, and it's basically the only technique I use now. Just you can use the poly mesh, you can use the lightweight muslin like we talked about at the beginning, but then you have to deal with that in the seams and taking it out of the seams and all of that. This is really the easiest process I find. Now, remember that we have our brand new product out called our Build a Quilt in the Hoop Block Basic Set 1. That gives you your half square triangle, your quarter square triangle, and your square in 4 sizes. Plus, there's a complete how-to video that's a private video just for the folks that have this set. Plus, you get your coloring sheets and you get your templates and all of your written instructions. In fact, here's my whole packet. I printed mine out in black. But as you can see, there are step-by-step instructions for visuals. There's everything you need in here. And right now on our website, our new set is just $39.99. That's super, super great value, folks, because it's going to go up in not too much longer in price to its normal price, which will still be a great value, but get it at its best price. And with just this set, you're going to be able to make tons and tons of quilts. If you never buy any other in the hoop sets, you're going to be able to make tons of quilts. But we do have another basic set that will come out in the fall, and that will give you some other of the most basic blocks. And then coming in the new year, we're going to have whole quilts with the quilt blocks needed for them and everything in those sets coming out. So we have lots of great new things to look for. Not only can you find our new Build-A-Block or Build-A-Quilt set at our website, but you can find our free block of the month for 2023. And this lovely little snowball friendship block we've done right here, that is our free block for July. So go grab your set now. You're going to get your coloring sheet. You'll get your digital file. The free block of the month only comes in the one size, okay? Whereas with your Build-A-Block set, for those blocks, you get a 2, 3, 4, and 5-inch blocks so that you can make different size blocks for different size quilts. But you'll get your coloring sheet, your template, your written instructions, all of that. And then our first block of the month video in July does the how-to video that you can go and watch right now if you want to do that. And then, so you can go there and you can any of our 2023 blocks of the month, okay? If you need to contact us, or there's our website again, sewandcommon.com. If you need to contact us, please do so at support@sewandcommon.com. We try to get back to you as soon as possible, but no more than 24 hours. Typically, I can get back to you that day. Sometimes on the weekends, it might, depending on where you are in the world, I might be nighttime here, so it would be maybe a few hours until I get to it when I wake up in the morning, but I will get to it for sure. And then please, folks, subscribe to our YouTube channel here at Sew Uncommon. We have over 300 videos out there now at last count. Most of them are all about quilting and piecing in the hoop. There are some others because I've been a quilter, as you, all of you that's been with me for a while know, for 50 years. So I do have some other videos out there, but the majority of them are all about piecing in the hoop because that's what we're about here at Sew Uncommon, is piecing in the hoop. So please subscribe, click the little bell, and that way you'll get notified when I send out new video or post new video content. And remember, every Sunday during the month is a video for our blocks of the month for that month. Today is technically the third week in July, and July's been a little bit different because this is our July block. This whole block was our June block. So typically we have a bigger 15 by 15 block because later in the fall we're going to be doing a whole quilt. But I wanted you all to have this block because I know a lot of folks are making farewell quilts for college students and friends and things like that that might be moving. So I wanted you to have this because this is a great block to use as your quilt label or to use as a friendship where you do the center in white and your corners in your color, your solid or your print. And then you can use permanent marker, or I say we're embroiderers, right? Use that embroidery machine and put your name and your date or whatever you're going to do on there. And so all of that can be found over at, of course, at our website. And this month's free block of the month is our Build a Quilt in the Hoop Friendship and Snowball Block. That's what we call it. So, all right, everybody, if you've been with me for a while, you know what's coming. Go Sew Life Beautiful, everybody. Go make beautiful blocks, make beautiful quilts, and please post your photos at our Facebook page, Sew in Common, because I'd love to see them, and I will share them so everybody can see them and tell you how beautiful they are, because they really are. Because each one of us are artists in our own right. The way we interpret a quilt pattern through the colors we choose, the fabrics we choose, and that sort of thing. So go Sew Life Beautiful. Have a great rest of your weekend, and we will see you next week. Bye for now, everybody.